When I was in the federal prison in Wisconsin, Oxford, I spent a year in the hole under an SIS investigation. And it was just a phony thing where they had wanted me to tell them something about this Mexican gang. And I never ratted on anybody, and I wasn't about to start, so I wouldn't talk to them. So they kept me in the hole under investigation. When I'm back there in the hole, after a while, you're in the hole, the guards get to know you after a few months. And they had brought this young kid in there, about 21 years old, Mexican kid from Monteray, Mexico. That's what we called him, Monteray. And he didn't speak much English. But they let me go out in the rec yard with him one day. And they've got him in there under an investigation on a murder charge. And this guy has never been in trouble. He was locked up doing time for entering the country illegally. Get out in the rec yard with him, and the rec yard's only about maybe, it's a small room, about maybe four times bigger than a regular cell. And you get out 1 hour a day to go to this little rec yard. I go out there and I tell this guy, I said, hey, be careful, don't talk to anybody about what they got you back in here for, what they're investigating you for. Because one of these guys will take a little bit of information and spin a bunch of lies on it, make a deal with the authorities to cut some of their time off. And you're stuck with a murder case that you weren't involved in. This poor kid, he don't know what to do. He's never been in prison before. Got him locked up in a hole under a murder investigation. And he says, he starts crying. I'm out there, I just got done telling him, don't talk to anybody about what you're back here for. He starts crying. He says, I don't know what to do. He says, I don't know why they locked me up. He says, instead of just sending me back to Mexico. He says, but I come here on the bus. He says, and I meet this guy, and he seems really nice, and he says, when we get to Oxford, we'll tell them to put us in a cell together. So when they do the process and they bring him in there, he says, yeah, he says, let me be this guy's cellie. He says, as soon as they lock the doors, this guy stands up and he says, hey, baby, come on down here with me. I look at this guy, he says, I can't believe what this guy is asking me to do. He says, no. And he says, this guy gets angry. He says, oh, what? You think I'm ugly? You don't want to be with me? And he's going, no. He says, all night long. He says, I didn't get no sleep. He said, all night long, this guy is down there going, hey, baby. Come on, come with me. Come on down here. It's nice and warm in my bed. And this guy's going, all night long I'm telling him, no. He says, so the next day I go to breakfast. He says, I tell the other guy I met on the bus. And the guy's going, oh man. He says, what is wrong with that guy? He says, listen, he said, when we get back, he says, we're going to tell the guard to move you and put you in a cell with me. He says, so we go back. He says, the guard moves me in with this other guy. And he said, as soon as they lock the doors, this guy's grabbing him, trying to pull him down into his bed with him. He's saying, I saved you, now you're mine. This guy's going, no. And he says, He says, all night long I'm telling him, no, 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 and this guy keeps trying to touch him. And says the next day he goes to breakfast. When he comes back, the first guy that he was in the cell with, that kept telling him to come down there in his bed with him, the guy killed the other guy that brought him into his cell the second night. And that's why they had him in the hole under the murder investigation. And he says, I don't like America no more. He says, I don't like it here. He says, I just want to go back to Mexico. He says, this is too crazy for me. And that's the one thing that I can agree with, that it is crazy in the American prisons. The stuff that's going on in there is just straight wrong. And I guess the biggest key is don't put yourself in that position. Don't put yourself in that position. Met a lot of people that went to prison for doing one thing and just trying to stay alive. They ended up having to kill somebody or stab somebody. They ended up getting more time and more time. Vicious trap. I pray to God I don't ever go back to prison. I like it much better out here.